Hot topics of the day. Let's get right to it. The finals starting up on Thursday. The Raptors take 4 straight games from the Milwaukee Bucks in an upset. If we take a look at some key injury information, Kevin Durant, not too sure when he's going to come back, hasn't resumed on-court activities yet. DeMarcus Cousins, Teddy, a little bit closer to returning, but we are gamblers. And you got a little bit of an interesting situation right now. Heavy favorite, Teddy, Golden State Warriors, even though they are the road team in the finals. But the Raptors favored by 1 to start game 1. Interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't happen a whole lot. We saw this happen once already this postseason. That was Oklahoma City against Portland in the first round, where the Blazers were favored for game 1, but the Thunder were favored in the series. We all know how that turned out. OKC, not much of a challenge for Portland in that series. So the team that was favored in game 1 won the series, and the team that lost, or the team that was favored for the series, despite being dogs in game 1, did nothing. Now, obviously, with Golden State, 3 championship rings already. Toronto, a team that, look, they're happy to be here. No shock that the Warriors are the chalk in this series, but we have seen a fair bit of line movement on this one. We'll discuss in just a minute. It's worth noting, Toronto's 8-man rotation that they went with in Game 6 of the Bucks series. Not a single player drafted in the lottery in that 8-man rotation. It's all guys at the end of the first round, second rounds. Van Vliet's an undrafted free agent for Toronto. So when you're thinking about the draft, and, get all the best players in the draft, no, not always. It's not necessarily about getting the lottery picks, it's about getting the right guys. The Raptors have done an excellent job of putting talent together, despite not a single lottery pick amongst their core group of players.
Also, let's not forget that Andre Iguodala also probable to start the series, which you said will get underway on Thursday. We'll add to it as it goes right here on That Betting Show throughout the week, getting you ready for the NBA Finals. If we take a look, Teddy, a little bit of Major League Baseball action today, which is going to rule the day. The AL Central, is it over before we even start the month of June? If you would ask both me and you, Teddy, before the season, hey, it could be over. Yeah, well, Indians are going to walk away with this thing. Good bats, solid pitching, not a lot going on in the rest of the division. But it's the Twins, Teddy, winners of 11 and 12. That's going to coincide with the Indians, who are losers of 6 of 7. A 10-game lead, Teddy, in the division before, as we said, even starting in the month of June. If we took a look before the season, the Indians were minus 400, Teddy, to win this division. If we take a look now, how about this flip? The Twins now minus 400 to win this division.
As they should be. And look, I went on ESPN radio here in Las Vegas. Might have been opening day, the opening week. They said, the AL Central's over already. Doesn't matter. Cleveland's already won the division. Not so fast, my friends. And here we are, Memorial Day, and it's a 10-game lead for Minnesota in this division, which means that a team with an enormous payroll like the Indians, they don't think they're going to be in it. They could be sellers at the deadline. I've heard Trevor Bauer to Minnesota rumors. Remember, this Twins team was a wild card team in 2007, and last year they were a major disappointment. That certainly has not been the case in early betting action in 2019. No team more profitable than the Twins to support thus far. And frankly, given their starting pitching, unless they get a guy like Bauer, Minnesota likely to continue to be a profitable team to support, because their starting pitching, by and large, doesn't attract the type of wise guy action that some of the high-price starters tend to do.
Teddy, we watched some of these teams here because you saw the Seattle Mariners right now in a funk, got out to that hot start, unexpected, didn't see it coming, and quickly fell to the basement of the AL West. Now, we're taking a look at the Central Division, and I want to talk about maybe some buying options here that we're looking at, because we all anticipated the Indians, being that front-running team, or at least winning that division as the summer went along. They're now 10 games back. Is there any viability in saying, you know what? Look, the Twins weren't supposed to be here. Yes, they have a 10-game lead. Statistically, it's probably going to be pretty tough to blow a 10-game lead, but we've seen some crazy instances here. Is this a buying shot on the Indians, just when you're going to say, you know what? I'll wait and see till maybe they close the gap till 5 to see if they're viable, because you're right. Before you can even make up all that, let's just say they hang around and it's a 6 or 7-game lead. It's a good chance. You're right. The Indians are sellers. Are they maybe a buying option here if you're looking for value, or just completely a no here?
Is plus 260 value on Cleveland right now?
Not minus
I'm
10.
not convinced that it is, to win the division. And I understand there's a long way, more than 100 games to be played for both teams remaining in this season. And only 10 games to make up, and plenty of opportunities for the Indians to get hot and knock off Minnesota and, take that 10-game lead and turn it into a deficit. Yes, that the potential is there. But plus 260? It's not like you're getting this great price on Cleveland. Plus 600, I'm interested. Plus 260, not so much.
Teddy, walking up and down the strip here, Stanley Cup Finals, we saw it last year. The hometown guys, quote unquote, rooting against the Vegas Golden Knights. Now we see an interesting one here. When the Bruins are the favorites, usually when we see like, oh man, we really need the underdog to come through. Not so much here. With the favorite in the series, the Boston Bruins, a couple big tickets out there are lying with the St. Louis Blues. And it's interesting that the house, Teddy, rooting for the dog in this situation, rooting for the favorite, it looks like here.
Yeah, and it has everything to do with the fact that the Blues were priced. I mean, I saw 300 to 1. There weren't many 300 to 1s out there, but there were 250 to 1s and 200 to 1 tickets, and plenty of those tickets written. What was it, late December into January through the All-Star break, where St. Louis was an afterthought. At one point, they had the worst record in the league. And it doesn't take a ton of tickets to get written at 200 to 1 or 250 to 1 for the books to face enormous liability. In theory, they're only supposed to hang the 200 and 250 and 300 to 1s on teams that have no chance. Well, looks like St. Louis has a chance. Books all up and down the strip, as you mentioned, will be big Bruins fans for this series. Although, frankly, from a game-by-game basis, no surprise here if it's a bad result for the books either way, because you can already see and feel the sense there's going to be Boston money coming in from public bettors. So you have the long-term liability on the one side and the action coming in on the other side on a game-by-game basis. This doesn't feel like a real great Stanley Cup Finals for the bookmakers here in Vegas.
Yeah, it starts up tonight here on Memorial Day, Teddy, 8 p.m. Eastern time. If we take a look at some of the odds here at SBRodds.com, Pinnacle opened up around minus 160. Chris minus 165 has peeled back a little bit. So we're looking at maybe some minus 145s across the board total, which opened up at 5.5, Teddy. Now seeing some 5s, so maybe some defensive hockey to start out the series. Now, it is Memorial Day, Teddy. Most people are on holiday here observing, the veterans out there that gave so many parts of their lives here in order for us to have the freedom that we do today. But, Teddy, I had to rise up today. I had to get ready and said, you know what? The good people out there watching the show really need my energy today on the Philadelphia Eagles 2019 season team preview. How about this, Teddy? 16-1 to win the 2019 championship, 7-1 to win the NFC. And the team total, now keep in mind here, this is DraftKings out of New Jersey, which is legal sportsbook. 9.5 is the team total, Teddy. How about a little bit of juice on that one with minus 162? Finished in second place last year, 9-7. You saw it throughout the season, 4-2 overall in the division. Carson Wentz comes back from the knee injury, gets the broken back situation. They rest him. Doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs. They get a miracle at the end of the year with Nick Foles. And then Alshon Jeffrey drops a pass inside the 20-yard line with around 2 minutes to go against New Orleans to seal their fate. But moving forward, added some power at defensive tackle this year with Malik Jackson to go along with Fletcher Cox. They did lose, however, Jordan Hickson's a middle linebacker, but got a Pro Bowl, or perennial Pro Bowl, I should say, with Zach Brown from the Washington Redskins. The team has everything they need, loaded up on the offensive side of the ball. The question mark's going to be, and it's not that bad of a question mark for the Philadelphia Eagles to me, Teddy, is if Carson Wentz is going to play well. We've seen what he can do. Rookie season, decent. Second year, phenomenal. On his way to an MVP season before going down with a knee injury versus the Los Angeles Rams. Last year, a little bit up and down, but this team is built to win. It's built to win now. They have a decent division. The only caveat here, Teddy, which I always get mad at the schedule makers here, the first thing I look at when the schedule comes out is if my team plays a road Thursday night game. For the third straight year in a row, the Philadelphia Eagles will be on the road in September versus the Green Bay Packers on a Thursday night. But a key point of interest here, Teddy, the last 2 years the Eagles have been on a Thursday night game. They beat the Carolina Panthers and beat the New York Giants. So maybe it's not so much a bad thing here.
Yeah, maybe not. Although I remember betting against Philly when Andy Reid came to town on a Thursday night in his first trip back from when he joined KC, and that was an easy one. I love that bet. All that being said, this is an Eagles team. They won the Super Bowl following the 2017 season. They were a wild card team last year. They won a game in the postseason, beat the Bears. They lost, as you mentioned, a tight game with New Orleans. But we're talking about a team that has a clear playoff pedigree. We expect Philadelphia to be dancing around the playoff picture again this year. Last year, minus 0.2 yards per play. You don't see that out of a lot of playoff teams. Their statistical profile wasn't great. Minus 0.8 yards per rush. They did not run the football well. They did not stop the run well either. Last year, Carson Wentz with a 102 quarterback rating, opposing QBs just a 94. Philly made the playoffs despite a minus 6 turnover margin last year. They also made the playoffs despite the fact that their schedule was one of the toughest in the NFL. If you actually grade out the teams based on their powering number on the week the game was played, Eagles top 3 in terms of toughest schedule a season ago. This year, that's not the case. NFC North, AFC East, 2 extra games, Falcons and the Seahawks. The division's not that tough. It is a significant strength of schedule drop-off between what they faced last year, one of the toughest, and this year. On paper, based on this year's season win totals, one of the easiest. That matters. How good is Wentz going to be? That's my only question for Philadelphia. Can he last a full season without getting hurt? Last year, again, 11 games only, but he just threw 7 picks in those 11 games. And look, you bring in a guy like Andre Dillard to solidify the offensive line. You talked about the signings and Malik Jackson and Deshaun Jackson. Bring back Darby and Jernigan, 2 key defensive pieces. And I know you lose Golden Tate, and I know you lose Nick Foles. Jordan Hicks, another key loss for Philadelphia. But on paper, this team looks every bit as good as they did last year against a weaker schedule than they faced last year. How about this, Donnie? I liked your Eagles going in 2019. If I'm betting them, I would only bet them over the total based on season wins.
Beautiful. See, that's exactly why I came to work here Memorial Day, Teddy. I knew you would cheer me up with some information like that. If you want a really good follow during the season, make sure you follow my Twitter account there because I do live and die on every play, even though Teddy says, you know what, take the fandom out of it when you wager. Yes, I do bet against my Philadelphia Eagles. Don't do it a lot, but look, the money, even though the Eagles are green, Teddy's like to say, money is green as well, spends both ways in that.